Fiancé cheated with my friend who bragged to us about being littered with STDs. It recently came to the surface that my now wife cheated on me years ago. It happened while we were together on a weekend away with some of our closest friends. Soon after getting engaged. The person with who she cheated with was at the time someone I would have considered to be a friend. He was not as close to the group as all the other 8 to 9 people we were with at the time, but on the surface, I would have referred to him as a friend. Even more, he just happens to also be the brother of one of my wife's best friends, who was also there this weekend. We went away with some of our closest friends, all of us were in our late 20s. We did this together pretty regularly. We had spent the day and early evening drinking and hanging out. Then a couple hours after we barbecued some dinner, a friend and I noticed we needed to get more supplies. I was going to run to the store with my sober friend driving. Just before we were about to leave, I was made aware my fiancé had gone to the store with the guy in question, seemingly sneaking off, when there was no reason for being secretive unless. I was told he was supposedly sober and okay to drive to the store and she wanted cigarettes, not a smoker, but when drunk in those days she would imbibe on occasion. I remember suddenly being hit with the most uneasy wave of anxiety when I heard this. Not just because of the circumstances, it was a deep intuitive gut feeling. Have never been a particularly insecure, jealous, or controlling type of person. Though I'm sure that changed on some levels after this. I tried calling her to make sure they got ice on top of whatever else they were going to grab. No answer. Tried his phone, no answer. Other friends also tried calling them to tell them to grab bags of ice, no answer. By then it was clear I wasn't the only one seeing a potential issue here. Uncomfortability was evident on her friends and my friends' faces after several attempts to call each of them failed. Everyone sort of slinked away, I'd imagine in response to knowing and or observing what was going through my mind. The realization that I was not the only one connecting dots here was unbearable, some dots circumstantial and some just driven by institution and too substantial to ignore. I remember calling her phone 20 to 30 more times and pacing like a weirdo on the side of the house we were staying at. Went from having a truly great time with my best friends to living in a bad dream with nothing to go off of beyond ignored phone calls, institution, and the looks on a couple of our friends' faces when their calls were ignored also. She was gone for over an hour. The store is under 10 minutes away. Again, this happened years ago. I was recently made painfully aware that she did in fact cheat that night. Which she confirmed, by saying as much, but playing dumb on the details and floundering on the justifications for why those details are too foggy to be disclosed. While that says a lot about her character, or lack of, it seems fair to say I likely only empowered her commitment to deception by taking it and not walking away that night. I confronted her when she returned, he conveniently dropped her off and left to not have to face me / the rest of us after what they just did. Getting nowhere in the form of communication that night, I proceeded to retreat inside my mind and consume tremendous amounts of booze and THC, trying to make this nightmare feeling go away. I will never forget waking up the next morning, her lying next to me and realizing that wasn't a bad dream. Also thinking, if my suspicions are right, this woman is the world's most sociopathic 403 ever, doing what I think she did and then sleeping in bed next to me the same night? I know even though I forced myself into denial, deep down I always knew some bad crap went down, but I turned it off in my mind, probably as a weak defense mechanism. We had such a long and deep relationship at that point, 8 years, 6 living together, recently engaged, she slept next to me in bed hours later? I couldn't begin to wrap my head around the concept that she may be capable of doing something so unfathomable that I chose to convince myself that the reason it seemed so insanely incomprehensible and screwed up must be because it was all in my head. Over time convincing myself I remembered an exaggerated version of events for whatever reason. But in the immediate weeks after this I kept approaching her about it over and over. I was told I'm wrong, crazy for even suggesting it. To a point where I was told I am a psycho for making such accusations. That was the narrative from the moment it happened when she returned from betraying me so brazenly until days ago when it came to the surface. She even brought it up when we were hanging with her friend, his sister, in the context of, can you believe he thinks I would actually do something like that, come on. Using someone, his sister, as a pawn to hide her behavior from me and convince me I'm crazy is something I will never forget. She hid it from her friend until I found out for certain, if I was this friend she would be dead to me. After this, he avoided me like the plague, and I convinced myself it was because he heard of my suspicions and him being innocent, he didn't want to get involved. He made comments to friends that he was terrified of me, should have seen that for what it was. Wonder why. Scum. Worth noting, this guy was arrogant and a well-known womanizing narcissist. Even bragged about ducking 403 and having a very expensive pills habit. While sharing this will certainly only make me look even more unfathomably moronic for not running as far from her as I could that night, even though I was here for it, it seems fictional when I write it down. This dirtbag even bragged to all of the guys when we were busting his balls hours before that he is in fact such a legit 403, that it's likely he is littered with STDs and or HIV from all the unprotected contact he had. This is the kicker. We jokingly shared his comment with my fiancé and his sister that very day, so she was well aware of what he said yet made a choice to cheat on me with him. The details of how far it went are unclear. I'm told by her and another person he shared the story with there was no contact. Yet while it's safe to say I'm a moron, not moronic enough to let myself accept anything short of them having engaged in the most vile and degrading forms of unprotected contact. If she was capable of doing what she did, it would be insane to believe she wasn't capable of doing it all. This piece of human trash is one of those cliched bags that embodies the stereotype of an elitist misogynist who thinks his money makes him above all others around him. His financiers being slightly irrelevant in this context, as I do well myself. Since I have been forced to face this, can't rationalize how someone who could do something like this to their fiancé just days after saying yes? 7 years of living together? And be capable of moving forward into a marriage and still look me in the eye all this time, keeping this secret, not to mention God knows how many other vile secrets. Can't think of any grounds for justifying the concept that she wasn't or won't be capable of being unfaithful at any point past, present or future. My denial allowed her to brush it under the rug and she lost no sleep from that. Terrifies me. If a fiancé can cheat while spending a weekend away with close friends and do so in such a careless and reckless way that everyone there is uncomfortably forced to observe these red flags, don't know how to process this crap. I'm seeing now all the things I thought were a very strong-willed person were instead just the traits of someone who does whatever they want whenever they want with no concern for the impact on others. Especially when we were in our 20s, when drinking was involved. Anytime she did something I didn't think was okay or even suspected something, not talking just cheating related, she just denied it, and when denying isn't working due to witnesses and collateral damage, just call me crazy, bury the memory until in some cases she may have even convinced herself she didn't do any wrong. I have struggled with depression and battled with the impact of gaslighting for some time. Don't believe in the concept of being a victim, I believe in cause and effect. I didn't cause her to do this, that's all nature. I also don't believe in focusing energy on things we can't control as individuals. Yet I do have some ways to control whether I allow myself to be exposed to living a nightmare like this again. My wife cheated on me on my couch while I was upstairs. Just over a week from D-Day, and this freaking sucks. Never in a million years did I think she could do something like this, and I never thought I could hurt so much. I feel like this is a damn movie, but it's real life. Been reading through these forums and hoping some direct comments on my situation might be helpful to hear. I really have no idea what I am going to do. One day I want to tell her get the hell out of my life, and the next day I love her and want to do nothing but hold her. So here it is. My fiancé 31 and I, 31. Have been together almost 10 years and engaged for 4 years. I called her my wife, and we were basically married. Life seemed to be perfect. Just a couple of weeks ago, as I sat by the fire at our cabin we just bought this spring, and I literally said aloud to myself, damn, life is good. Well, the weekend of the 4th, after a day of drinking on the lake, she decided to bring up that she was not entirely happy. We were drunk and argued a bit, but I honestly don't remember much of what was said. The next day we tried talking and not much came out other than that she was not 100% happy, and that the last 5 months she hasn't felt the same. I asked why 5 months? What happened 5 months ago? She said nothing, she just felt different, and I started to realize that the past few months maybe she had been acting differently. More drinking, more girls' nights, more distant. I tried talking more and she got upset and we just went to bed. She had mentioned in the past that she felt I don't pay attention enough, or I only pay attention when I want sex, etc. etc. We'd make some small changes, but was kind of always the same. I always just thought, well, it's pretty normal to get a little boring after 10 years together. I've even mentioned couples counseling, and she always said, no, we don't need that. I always thought at least on the weekends we do stuff together and have fun. During the week I'm stressed with work and just want to do nothing. So, in hindsight, the relationship needed some work, but I never thought it could get to this. So, she texts me at work that Monday that she wants to be honest with me and told me she's been talking to one of our friends. The friend we both hung out with all the time and has a girlfriend, 4 or 5 months since a snowmobile trip we were all on. She said it was new and exciting and stupid, and it's over. I asked if they had sex and she said yes, and boom, my life turned upside down. Assuming she's telling me the truth, it was one night, drunk Memorial weekend. What absolutely disgusts me is it happened in our cabin, on our couch while I was passed out upstairs. I'm so embarrassed. They were both on the couch in the morning, and I thought nothing of it at the time. I laughed about and I was like, dude, you were sleeping with my wife, what the heck, just joking, assuming they both just passed out there because it was the only place to sleep downstairs and the bedrooms upstairs are hot. I'm just so disgusted now that I saw this and thought nothing of it. Now I can't get the damn images of those two out my head. The cabin was my happy place and now I will never be able to go back. These sucks. I'm sure it would hurt just as much if it were a stranger, but it sure feels like being a friend. It was 100 times the gut punch. We hung out after this too, and it just angered me. It feels good just to say all this somewhere. I'm just so angry, and it feels good to vent. I have not told anyone in the very slight chance we try to make it work. Just taking time to think right now. Edit. Obviously, I don't know yet, but just so commenters know, she does want reconciliation. She stopped talking to him and just keeps saying she was stupid and she's sorry. I know it's up to me to decide if she's remorseful or regretful. Guess we'll see. Also, I absolutely isn't talking to that piece of garbage other man again either. Now let's go over some of the top comments and responses from the original poster. Edit. Thank you everybody for all the replies. Just soaking in the responses. Didn't think I'd get so much response so quick. She claims to have started talking 5 months ago. Via Snapchat, conveniently, where texts disappear. I'm hearing you all that there is likely more to the story, but it's possible it was just texting over those 5 months. It was the last month, after the supposed ONS, that I'm looking back and seeing the change. I could see it truly being that one night of sex and then she went in guilty mode and wasn't sure how to deal. Granted that texting I'm sure was more than just friendly chit-chat. So really doesn't matter when it got physical, I suppose. Either way, it was a betrayal. How do I get the real story? I haven't asked to go through her phone but would like to. Not sure if anything is there anyways. I guess I need to come to terms with the fact that I probably won't ever know what's true and not. She has not refused to answer any questions even when I ask things I don't really want to hear. I just haven't wanted to ask for more details. I don't know if I want them. Lastly, a lot of folks mention the other man's girlfriend. It never crossed my mind to say anything to her. I just shut him out and figured screw him and his life. I guess the right thing is to tell her? I have no idea if she knows. Also, side note, I didn't catch her, she confessed, and I had no suspicion of infidelity. Also, the cabin is hers, we both split expenses and stuff, but the mortgage is in her name. We got better rates that way. I don't have the best credit. So, the cabin is easily put in the past. I own our primary house all in my name. Update. Told her we were done. Hardest thing I've ever done. These sucks. Thanks again everyone, it really is nice to hear from those of you that have been here. We did talk more about the whole timeline, and I honestly believe that the sex was one time, and they didn't really talk after that because she felt terrible. In the end, it doesn't really matter if there was more to it or not. I just can't live with that in our history, and the talking was still an emotional affair, and she knows it was wrong. She is taking it hard. Bawling when I walk in the door and ignore her. She is still at my house looking for an apartment. I feel bad we live in my hometown so she can't just go to her parents, and she really only has one close friend that lives in a tiny house with 2 other roommates, so no room there. She just constantly cries and tells me she's sorry she's such a POS and sorry she ruined my life blah blah. I reached out to the other man's girlfriend on Facebook Messenger, but I'm not sure she even sees messages on that / I don't get the little picture that pops up when a message is read, and I don't have her phone number. I'll probably try a couple more messages. Now I get to start selling our toys and stuff we bought together. I can handle that, but the hardest part one didn't mention was we have a dog. She keeps asking who was getting the dog, and I'm probably crazy to think we could split custody, but I'd really rather try that than lose the dog completely. We adopted her when we were together, but technically she paid, so I think by law it's hers. Guess we will see. Finally, it probably wasn't the best time financially, but I bought a Harley to have something to do and get my mind off this betrayer. It's a great release. I've been talking to a couple of friends I haven't talked to in a while. But really, I never had many close friends, and my brother lives out of town, so it's sort of tough. I haven't told my parents yet, but will in time. Gah, once again I just never thought I'd be going through this hell. Okay, drunk at the bar and need to vent, made contact with the other man's girlfriend the other night. More on that later. She apparently has control of her boyfriend's phone now. She messaged me today that my ex invited the other man to a weekend at the cabin in September. I immediately texted her and told her to get the F out of my house. She now claims her friend made the group and invited him. Laugh out loud, what a joke. Holy F, I'm livid. It was over anyways, but WTF. I'm ignoring her and she just keeps texting. She swears she had no idea he was invited. I want no contact with him at all, please, believe me, blah 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 ha. I was rooted to the spot when found wife's evidence of cheating in my own truck. Married for 10 years, 2 beautiful smart children, 10-year-old girl and 3-year-old son, buying our home, and now going through a divorce. During the first 9 years of marriage, my wife and I have had ultimate trust. This was until I found out she lied to me. Then the lies just started to pop out of the woodwork. One day she said she was going to her girlfriend's house, and later I read a text message from that day that showed she didn't go but to another man's house. I didn't say anything to her at that moment, but then started to watch her texts on her phone more closely while she was sleeping. During the same week, I read a text to another guy that said, "I want you all to myself." I then woke up at 2 a.m. and questioned her on these 2 texts. The next day she called the first guy and told him she couldn't come over to cut his hair no more as it was causing martial issues. She made this call on speakerphone so I could hear the whole conversation. His response was, "I understand, not just for a haircut?" A few months have passed and my wife is having kidney stones. She is diagnosed with a kidney disease. The doctor prescribes Vicodins for her pain. She has taken these in the past for her menstrual cramps, but I never seen this as a problem. One day she calls me at work and tells me her bottle of pills came up missing. She then was blaming my friend for stealing them. I searched the whole house looking for these pills as this was about to cause a friendship to come to an end. I search for the pills and come up with nothing until a few days later. I found a pill bottle in her purse in her car that had 31 of these Vicodins in there, and the bottle didn't have a label. I was on my way to work then. I didn't tell her I found these pills, although how could I miss them, and later that day she calls me to tell me that she called her doctor to tell him the bottle was stolen. So the doctor ordered her another script. She says to me that the doctor believed her and that she hopes to get by the pharmacy to pick them up before they close. However, I go and pick up the script after work, but called her before I did. She says to pick them up and let her know how many and what strength they are. Well, I didn't call her back, just waited for her to come home that evening. When she walked in the door, her first words were, "Where are my pills?" She then sets her purse down, and as soon as I had a chance, I opened it to see if the bottle I seen earlier was in there. It wasn't. So she wants to order food and I go and pick the food up, but I take her car. While in her car, I find the unmarked bottle of pills in her console. I put them into my pocket when I got home and came inside to eat. Once I finished my food, I threw my container away, grabbed up the new script, came back to the table and pulled the unmarked bottle out and set it on the table. Her reply was, "Why did you take them out of my car?" I'm like, What the heck are you doing driving around with my kids and an unmarked bottle of pills? She's like, my friends give them to me. No. Ain't no one gonna to come off of that many pills for free. Not buying it. And it's just odd that the number of pills in this bottle are the same amount that just came up missing. I got a friendship on the line due to this. I tell her I'm leaving for the night and I'm taking the boy with me. She says, Sack, I got a problem, I enjoy taking them. I said, well, think about it overnight, I'm leaving. But she doesn't want me to take my son with me. I take the boy into his room to get him dressed and she comes into the room and sits down in front of the door blocking us in. I tell her she's gonna move or I'm gonna move her. So I did. She's not a light woman by any means, but within my capabilities to move. Well, during the move, I put a bruise on her arm. I leave with my son for the night. I come back in the morning as I took her car so she couldn't leave for the night. This happened on a Friday, and on Saturday I set her down and give her the options. Divorce, split up, or make it work. If she chose to make it work, we must seek marriage counseling and she needs to seek help for the pills. She agrees. So we start seeing a counselor. She makes it through 4 sessions and quits. I've continued to go and still continue. A few weeks later, I find an unopened protection in my truck after she gets out. WTF? A few more weeks later, her friend calls me up to tell me that she can't keep living my wife's lies. She informs me that my wife has admitted to cheating on me with a couple of different guys. But when I ask my wife, she says I only told her that to make her feel better about having in termination. What? I get a hold of her phone again and listen to her voicemails. I hear one message that says, "Why are you starting rumors about us seeing each other?" I'm now totaled heartbroken. But continue to try and make it work. Although now, I have a full-time job playing detective. I go up north for the 4th of July, come home to read a text that shows she had another man at my house while I wasn't there. Just doesn't end. August 28th, my dad calls me to tell me that he's been diagnosed with cancer. 4 weeks later, he passes. 5 days before he passes, I find my wife at this guy's house and so I took her car and drove it home. Just to let her know I know what she's doing. Then all heck broke loose that night. A few weeks later, I find her cell phone in her car and I watched her type in the lock code the night before, so I unlocked it to find a text chat with the guy she was with when I took her car. They're telling each other that they love each other and they're meant for each other. Also they say that they hope this all passes soon and they'll get through it together. I take a picture of her phone with this message. I showed it to her father to show him she's lying to him also. He's apparelled. Next day, someone cut my transmission lines. I called the cops and go back into the house to ask her what her boyfriend's last name was. She immediately calls the cops. She gets them there faster and tells them I was threatening her. I merely asked her a question. Later that afternoon, I hired a lawyer, time for the divorce to start. But she's already filed. Monday, I come home for lunch, she's passed out and the 3-year-old is awake. I take her phone out of her hand and hide it. Tuesday, her and I are texting all morning. I come home for lunch, she's not home. I find her at the park with her boyfriend and my son. I pull in and start taking picture. I get into a little confrontation with the boyfriend. He grabbed my arm and I got in his face and told him I had every reason to kick his A. Before I leave to go back to work, I try and kiss my wife to make him jealous. I also tell her I'm gonna be fighting for my kids as she don't need them. I go back to work and when I came home, she was baiting me to come home. An hour later the cops are there and arresting me for domestic issues. She has a witness that says I tried to end her, slammed her against the car and it's not her boyfriend. I spent 21 hours in jail for something I didn't do and now have to prove my innocence. I've been ordered out of my house, all I got is the clothes on my back. She went and got a pro against me as well. She changed the locks too so I can't get in to get my stuff. Now I'm on an emotional roller coaster. What could possibly happen next? What should I watch for?